In this video, I want to talk about antigen research, psychedelics, and specifically the effects of psychedelics or antigens in the human brain. I make this video. This video is going to be uploaded on ongoing research. I'm going to be basing myself on a published study. All videos on this playlist in this channel, ongoing research, are going to have some sort of study attached to them. I wanted to cover this study whenever I made that video about the first EEG scan on a dying human brain. I didn't have the time because the video was long, so I'm going to link it somewhere on the screen. So in 2022 we had the first scan of a dying human brain. Given that it was a coincidence, the person who had this happen was already plugged to an EEG. He was conducting an examination, and at the same time he had a heart attack. So everything during the passing of this individual was recorded, and what it revealed is something that they've already done in studies with animals, which is that the brain becomes very active during that, and there are all these brainwave patterns and so on and so forth. And in the research of antigens, something very similar happens, which is quite interesting, because the most altered states of consciousness experience are related to this brainwave activity, and the fact that near-death experiences and psychedelic or antigen-based experiences are quite similar in terms of the subjectivity of it, the actual experiences, that people going into alternate dimensions, into different settings, and meeting entities who communicate quite particular things, like everything is love and there's something much larger going on in reality, and so on and so forth, the mysteries of the universe, and so on and so forth. All of these things happen, which a lot of people call them hallucinations, but the patterns are really clear. Happen when the brain is having these brainwave activities. So a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's just the brain acting up," but there's a lot of arguments that I can go into. So I'm gonna link that video of the first EEG scan on a human dying brain. But in this video, I'm gonna be talking about the research from Christopher Timmerman, who, following the footsteps of David Nutt and some other researchers, have noticed these brainwave patterns, and there are in the brain, and there are some very interesting things attached to this phenomenon. And furthermore, it can lead us to understand what exactly is the relationship between consciousness, conscious experience, and the brain. Is everything happening in the brain? Is everything happening in the quote-unquote mind? Or are we seeing something else? Perhaps the very moment where if the brain was a filter, the very moment that it starts loosening up and letting go into a larger, unfiltered reality. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. Alright, so here's the article that I'm going to be looking at today, and it is an article that I wanted to introduce, a study that I want to introduce in that video that I made of the first scan of a dying human brain, where I go into what became this year the first scan, the first EEG reading of a human dying brain, which happened in a strange situation that allowed medical experts to see what's going on when someone is dying. And notably, what they saw is brainwaves just firing, and I saw the connection straight away to some of the studies that they've done on antigens, on Dimitri, some people call it, the God molecule, some people call it. I don't know if there's a lot of restrictions, or if my channel can be damaged in any way if I say the word or something like that, because there's a lot of stigma behind it. But there is serious research about antigens happening right now in psychedelics, and I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen, where I talk about how big pharma is going into the actual research, into a more formal research where they are acknowledging the existence of these supernatural experiences and people meeting beings and entities and being in alternate realities and so on and so forth. I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen. You can find all the links attached below. So, okay, I'm gonna go straight into it. This article was written in 2019. The study was conducted by Christopher Timmerman. Mark the name. This is a young researcher who is going into these studies on antigens, following the footsteps of David Nutt and some other researchers who are actually going into the actual research, looking at EEG, looking at how the brain reacts and making all these connections. It's very interesting research, and of course the same argument remains. Anybody can write an article. This doesn't mean this is true, and so on and so forth. Yes, this is a blog post. I like the aesthetics. I like the way this article is written. It's very well written by Emma Betwell, I believe. You can find somewhere right here. But this is based on an actual study. I'm gonna link both the article and the study below in the description. All videos on ongoing research, this playlist on this channel, A Rational Divine Outline, are always gonna have an actual published research attached to them. Neural correlates of the DMT experience assessed with multivariate EEG. So this is the abstract. So anybody who wants to go to the actual study, you can just find it here. They talk about the same thing here in an easy way to understand it. Okay, so the name of the article is Brainwave Study Explains Why a DMT Trip is Like Entering an Alternate Reality. Scientists can finally explain the breakthrough experience. Okay, so the article starts going into why it's called the God molecule. Some liken the DMT trips to a near-death experience, complete with encounters with mystical beings or entry into an all-encompassing new realm. So these are things that happen when people are in these experiences. They see these alternate realities. They see beings who can communicate with them in some sort of form, and some of these beings have been characterized as angels, as gods, goddesses, aliens, you name it. People see these beings as different things. There's a huge discussion of whether these realities or these beings actually exist in some sort of alternate reality, or if it's all a creation of the brain. Well, what I find very interesting about this is that a lot of people are seeing the same sort of entities or the same sort of realms, which means that if a lot of people are seeing the same thing, this thing exists and is being accessed through the experience, rather than everybody is creating the same thing in their minds. Okay, so according to the research, that experience likely stems from DMT's ability to create very specific patterns of brainwaves. So this is what the whole article is about. It's about they studied the brainwaves that what's happening in the brain of people when they are going through these experiences. And I said it's very related to that article that study that I talked about, where we had the first scan of a human dying brain. Both of these links from the previous studies are gonna be below or somewhere on the screen. Okay, so the article goes on to say that people are engaged in these alternate dimensions. They are very, very engaged. Some people are saying this is the best experience that the best thing that they've ever experienced in their lives. And so here it creates an extremely realistic new reality that exists entirely inside the mind, explains Christopher Timmerman, PhD student at the Imperial College London and the study's first author. Christopher Timmerman, he's doing some amazing work. If you Google him, if you go to YouTube and Google Christopher Timmerman, you can find a lot of his research. It's very, very interesting, and I think this guy is gonna bring some amazing discoveries in the future. So the one thing that I disagree with here is it exists entirely inside the mind. So this is the main question: is it inside your mind or is it somewhere else? To which I would ask a bigger question, and I think the right question would be, what exactly is the mind? We don't really know what the mind is. We don't really know what consciousness is. People think that when the brain activates and there is this flashing in certain areas, that is the mind that is happening. We don't know. It's a big problem of qualia. Where does it exist? What is the mental image? It seems to be all information, which is not, it is not our mind. There is the mind. There is not our consciousness. There is the consciousness. And what it seems that is happening here is that when through altered states of consciousness, whether it be with entheogens or through dying, or going to sleep and being in deep sleep and having dreams, we access the mind, not our mind, the consciousness, with our very own filter, which occurs through our brain, through our ego development. This seems to be what's going on. So we would have to ask ourselves, what is exactly the mind? Ties a little bit into the work of Carl Jung and some things that I'm going to be going into the future. So these experiences feel incredibly real and meaningful. They engage with beings and entities that communicate with them. They have strong emotional reactions and effects in their bodies. So some of these experiences, this is why I started a playlist where in my previous video I started to go into case studies of near-death experiences. I'm going to be doing this with entheogens as well, because one thing is to talk about it like this, like yes, strong emotional reactions and effects in their bodies. Another thing is to actually read the experiences and see that people are saying that they've been told the ultimate reality and they've been told what exactly is going on, and everybody comes out laughing and saying like this is, they cannot believe that this is the reality underlying our reality. And a lot of people have been going through these spaces and sharing information that we can barely conceive. And it seems that all of these experiences are related also to near-death experiences, to out-of-body experiences, where people are contacting some sort of intelligence which is trying to send a message to people in this realm, in this reality. It's way deeper than a basic emotional reaction. Another thing to point out here is effects in their bodies. People feel things, they feel vibrations, so on and so forth. If we go into the research on out-of-body experiences and we go into the writings of Bob Monroe, where he explains sleep paralysis and how there's a very strong vibration in the body. It seems to be also some sort of a physical situation going on. It's all correlated, and this is also in ancient scriptures. When Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, was getting in contact with this angel, he would explain this vibration. When the Tibetan Buddhists explain that at the moment of death that they feel like oceans are collapsing onto themselves and all reality collapses around the person who is dying, we're talking about vibration. We talk about sleep paralysis, I said, we talk about vibration. All of these things seem to be correlated. As I said, different reality dimension, unusual bodily sensations. They draw pictures like this. They have these experiences. They have these very abstract experiences sometimes. Okay, so while they were experiencing that, scientists took EEG readings of their brain activity, usually seen during states of consciousness like sleeping or waking. They include delta waves, common during sleep, theta waves, earlier sleep stages, alpha waves, states like meditation, beta waves, during typical wakefulness. So these are all the brain waves that are occurring when all these when they are going through this experience. And as I said in that article, as this study suggests in that article of the first dying human brain, there is all of this activity in brainwaves at the time of death. Now in the moment of that in that research, they talk about gamma wave activity, which is when people are engaged into solving a problem. The person who was going through the experience was very engaged, but there's also this all this activity going on, which is the same that is going on to the experience of entheogens. This is a correlation that people are not doing when we're looking into that scan. So it's a very interesting thing because okay, I'm gonna go into it. So I think so large decreases in higher frequency alpha waves and big increases in the low frequency delta and theta waves, while participants were on DMT. Visual imagery or hallucination induced by the compound were correlated to this brainwave. So alpha waves, they are decreased during these states of meditation, and they go into actual sort of sleep. Theta waves and deep sleep, delta waves, which is when people are through deep sleep. So these are the waves that are happening now. Does that mean that people are just dreaming? Does it mean that people are just falling asleep and they're just hallucinating or dreaming? Not quite. I think what is showing is that when people are in these alter states, they go through the meditation state onto the deep sleep. Now, the idea of sleeping is very interesting. The idea that all these altered states of consciousness happen during or closer to the states of sleep is something very interesting. The article goes into this. These effects are similar to what we see when people are dreaming. Timmerman is particularly intrigued by these effects are similar to what we see when people are dreaming. So that's what we're saying. The visual effects are tied to the increase of theta waves and the decrease in alpha waves. The bodily effects were associated with decrease in beta waves. The emotional effects were associated with increase in signal diversity. So these are some correlations they were making. I mean, this is a little bit complicated to come at a conclusion, but this signal diversity, this is something that also in the work of David Knott in psilocybin is happening through the use of mushrooms and some other entheogens. It's the same thing. These basically chaotic or unpredictable patterns of brainwaves. There's an explosion of emotion, of things going on in the brain while these experiences are happening. So what I think all of this tells us, going into the sleep state, is that if we go into mythology, and this is something that I found studying ancient scriptures, is that in mythology there is Thanatos, which is the god of the dead, and hypnosis, hypnotic regression, is the cousin of Thanatos and is correlated with sleep, or what is called sleep torpor. Is this fringe, this bridge between perhaps what we understand as death and wakefulness. It's hypnosis. It's this in between. It's sleep. So when people, or most of the altered states of consciousness happen during some sort of close to sleep situation. When we talk about sleep paralysis and out-of-body experiences, some of the techniques done to induce out-of-body experiences, this is when people are in these early stages of sleep. When we talk about the UFO phenomenon and abduction and people meeting these entities, it happens usually right after, like in the early stages of sleep, or just as they wake up. It's all related to sleep. As I said, when you go into ancient scriptures and you find that Prophet Muhammad would go into this cavern and go into this state of meditation, and he would say that he would fall asleep and then he will see the angel. When you talk about Buddhism and they talk about this state of samadhi, they go into such a deep state of meditation that they go through into that state of samadhi, which seems to be some sort of sleep state, sleep torpor. When you go into the story of the transfiguration of Jesus Christ, and this is something that I include in my book, A Ghost of Jesus. I'm working on the editing at the moment, the final editing. I introduced in the chapter of the transfiguration, where the transfiguration is when these people saw Jesus becoming a being of light, and they saw people coming from the sky. And you can see the correlation with the UFO phenomenon with altered states of consciousness right there. And in the scripture, one of the passages says that the students or the followers of Jesus who saw this were deep with sleep. That is the translation in English. If you go to the Greek translation, they talk about sleep torpor. In the Greek translation, the word hypnos, cousin of death, the brother of death, hypnos, the one correlated with sleep, is mentioned. So we can see this correlation here in the sleep states and the altered states of consciousness, which is something very interesting. Now, does this mean that it's all just a dream? It's all just a hallucination when people are in this sort of state? It doesn't seem so. it seems that what is happening, and what I believe is happening, is that the brain is a filter, which is, we have a bunch of theories about that. I'm going to be going into them as well. The brain is a filter. When we are in these stages, we turn off the alpha, which is the meditation, the typical wakefulness. All of this starts to be turned off, and we go into a different state where we still attach to our ego, to our personal identification with the body, and we start accessing this larger consciousness, this larger realm of information, which is you start going into the concepts of the Akashic records and so on and so forth. And in the more recent studies, I made a video named A Theory of the Soul, where I go a little bit into an introduction of the Orkoar theory by Penrose and Hameroff, where they are saying that there are microtubules in the brain which contain quantum information, and that's where we store the information of our ego, and these are released at the moment of death. It's all information which seems to be in a larger field, which some people are calling the quantum field of consciousness. So what I believe is happening, and this is a very basic draft of something that I've been working on and I'm going to be publishing in the future, is that at the moment of death, and through these experiences, this information starts leaking into the larger field, which is what we call the mind. This is what he was saying over here, like entirely inside the mind. This experience happening. What is the mind really? It seems that it's this larger field of information. So people access these entities, this consciousness, everything is within it. So I think there's something like that going on. I'm gonna be going into it further in the future, and I'm gonna land it a little bit more. I know it's a little bit all over the place right now, but this is not just a simple hallucination, and there's so much more going on, and we have all this evidence that is tying everything together. Okay, so the article goes on. What happens during the breakthrough experience? They want to show a drawing here, which was deleted. So a lot of people make art about what's happening when they are in a breakthrough experience. This breakthrough is something they call, it's a larger experience, a more encompassing experience, where they feel love, or they feel that they've met God, or they are in the presence of God, and they just feel things that they cannot explain. They say there are no words to explain what happens over there. And some people talk about highly sensual experiences. Some people talk about this unlimited love or joy or happiness, and so on and so forth. There's some people call it heaven. Some people call it different things. So this is the breakthrough experience. Some people just download all the information in the universe, in reality, and what everything is all about, and so on and so forth. So these are the deep experiences. And what seems to happen in the brain while people are going through these experiences is that there is a collapse of the alpha and beta waves, which are the ones that are in charge of the meditative state, and alpha waves, and beta, which is typical wakefulness. So wakefulness and meditation go away for the theta and the delta, which is this deep sleep, and then there's a collapse altogether, where people see the decrease, DMT experience, a decrease in alpha waves, an increase in theta waves, and a spike in signal diversity. So everything just goes firing up, and there's all this situation going on. And what they say is that our human brain can barely understand, can barely handle what is happening through these experiences. As I said, if it seems that we are in the bush of letting go of our ego, of the brainwaves that are correlated with our wakefulness, with our interpretation of this world, into something else, something that perhaps is non-physical, our brains cannot handle it. So what they say here is each of these changes help explain why it feels so all-encompassing. So something interesting and a little bit more subjective, but even though it's subjective, can help us understand perhaps what's actually happening here is, in the near-death experience, people are usually told that at some point they have to make a choice when they see quote-unquote heaven, or when they are told what's going on, and so on and so forth. They are told, you have a choice now. You either cross this threshold, which sometimes is a gate, sometimes it's a wall, sometimes is going on top of a river. So there's different ways to explain it, to conceive it in the imaginarium of the near-death experience. And in this breakthrough experience, people feel like they are dying, and they talk about the ego dissolution. They talk about them not being them anymore, and they know that they're gonna die. They understand that this is what death feels like. This is some of the way that they have explained the experience. So what I'm thinking here is that this breakthrough experience, where there's all this signal diversity and that first scan of the human dying brain, where there is all these things going on, that is where there is the threshold of whether going all throughout, exiting the brain filter into the larger consciousness, which is what the Orcoar theory suggests. With Parnas and Hameroff, all the links are gonna be below. Or you go back into the delta waves, into the theta waves, going back to the alpha, and then going back into the beta, into typical wakefulness. It seems that this is what's happening. So perhaps this is what we're seeing, altered state of consciousness, and all of this firing of brainwaves in altered states of consciousness, near experience, and so on and so forth. It seems that there's something. This could be what's going on. Of course, all of these are theories and hypotheses, some by myself, some by other people that I've read. I'm going to be going into all of these theories in the future. Guys, it keeps going on this until sign of diversity and experience the rich and unusual experience that people have, so on and so forth. Christopher Timmerman says that he has this kind of research, a better way to understand consciousness in general, understand how we're able to construct such elaborate experiences while being detached from normal waking consciousness is absolutely necessary if we want to have a comprehensive view of what human consciousness is. 100%. For now, this work points to how a hallucinating brain can construct a vibrant world entirely inside the mind. Now, there's a lot of assumptions here that I don't believe are true, and I don't believe we have conclusive evidence that this is what's going on. We have this first peer-reviewed scientific consensus statement that I've been mentioning it and linking it in all of my previous videos because this is so important. This is a consensus statement from medical experts around the world related to the future research of near-death experiences, and one of the key items in that published study, which I'm going to link it somewhere on the screen right now. You can find all of this below, as I've been saying. It's not the experiences are not consistent with hallucinations. And there's that huge correlation with near-death experiences and entheogen-based experiences, out-of-body experiences. Everything is the same. It seems that we are going into the same. It's not. One of the things that I don't like about the entheogen community is that they call it the God molecule, and I've even seen people that get a tattoo of the molecule, and they treat the molecule like it's a god, like it's an entity, like it's a thing. This is simply the process. What seems to be happening is that we access these other realms of reality, these different dimensions that perhaps are not physical. And it seems that is what is happening here. So it's not a hallucination, it's inside the mind. What is the mind? We're accessing the mind, not each individual person's mind. And at the same time, yes, because we all share it. As I said, this has to do with the collective subconscious of Carl Jung, which I think the work of Carl Jung, as all of these studies and all of these things keep going forward, is going to become more relevant. This does not only speak about human consciousness, this also speaks about what exactly the brain is, what exactly the mind is. These are the real questions here. So I've seen these videos about how a lot of people are being skeptical and are saying this is all a subconscious experience, this is your subconscious, these entities are in your mind, are in your brain. How come that people are seeing these same entities in near-death experiences, in out-of-body experiences, in channelings, in UFO abduction experiences? It's all the same, and it's all the same. It's through the sleep pattern, it's through the altered state of consciousness. It's people in out-of-body experience where they see their bodies, they travel into these different dimensions where they see all of the same beings, the same situations, the same sort of things happening. So this is what I think. I think that through altered states of consciousness, whether through entheogens, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, so on and so forth, we access the larger consciousness, the larger quote-unquote mind. It seems to be what is going on. This research helps to tie this first scan of the first dying human brain and the correlation with entheogens. There's a lot of work to be done in out-of-body experiences and some of the other altered states of consciousness, but this correlation between entheogen and the dying human brain and this brainwave activity and these theories about the brain just being a filter, it certainly sets the stage for the future research of consciousness. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it will help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.